we are at a very interesting point in the sports calendar where football's back, fully back. I mean, week 3, week 4, week 3 for NFL, week 4 for college. Also, NBA and hockey are going to be back soon. With the Olympics, it really didn't feel like basketball was away for that long. It felt like the free agent cycle was a little bit slower this year. I don't know. Maybe that was just me, but it was that they did play in the Olympics. And I mean, I don't. Again, you know that I'm a Celtics fan here. So if you're a Celtics fan, you saw Tatum and Drew Holiday and Derek White all. At least, well, they were all on the team. Obviously there was that controversy with Tatum where he didn't play or whatever. But it's also the WNBA playoffs have started. And the awards have also been announced. So A'ja Wilson, I think, is she's the most dominant WNBA player right now. And, unfortunately, she is kind of part of that weird class where I was looking into some of her rookies and trying to find them. There really isn't that many, if any. And for a player like her, it is unfortunate. I should look to see if there are any. She had it was from the description, it was the Rittenhouse 2018 Rittenhouse WNBA card from her rookie year, because I think that's when she was a rookie in 2018. So there's a Rittenhouse card that I don't know exactly what the brand is here. I guess it is just Rittenhouse WNBA. So for some reason, maybe they had the license or something. I don't really know exactly what it is. But then she did have a Donruss card in 2019. So that would have been her first I guess the Rittenhouse cards were licensed. But, first card within a pack was in 2019. And I think it's good that we have seen more products for the WNBA over the past few years. Because then in 2020, that's when they started coming out with Prism. So it was Sabrina Ionescu, unfortunately missed most of her rookie year because of an injury in the first, which that year was the bubble year during COVID. So they which is interesting for them because their whole season during that year was in the bubble because it would have been close to starting is when kind of COVID and all that, everything went down. So they had their whole season in the bubble. So they were really kind of, I don't know. There's an interesting documentary that ESPN put out. I believe I don't remember exactly what it's called, but if you search WNBA bubble ESPN, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. All that to be said, the rookie cards have definitely gone up with how many players are getting them now. Yeah, and obviously I'm going to talk about Caitlin Clark. I can't really, unfortunately, well, I don't know, not unfortunately, but the thing is, when you talk about the WNBA, I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards Caitlin Clark, and I think a lot of the league is also very good. I just think that, I think that she is such an important player right now. It's really tough to have any type of conversation about the WNBA or the future of the WNBA or even, I don't know, WNBA cards without looking at Caitlin Clark because, even just for example, in the sports card world, she had one of her rookie autos that was a Panini instant draft auto, I believe, sold for $84,000. So that's, I don't know if that has to be probably a record for a WNBA card. I mean, it's obviously a record for Caitlin Clark. And then so Caitlin Clark also wins Rookie of the Year, which it felt like that was probably obvious. I mean, I think if Angel Reese had not gotten hurt, there was maybe a conversation to be had between the two of them, but I don't know. I think it was more, that was just a conversation to have a conversation really between them two, really, if you're looking at their stats. Angel Reese, I think, is a good player, but Caitlin Clark, I think, is just a pretty far and beyond. I don't know. They're both good. This is kind of the thing. I don't know. Whatever. But so Caitlin Clark wins Rookie of the Year. She also not almost, but she was the fourth vote. She had the fourth most points in the MVP voting, which I don't know. I mean, if you're fourth closest in the MVP voting, I feel like you're probably up there. Obviously, she did win Rookie of the Year, but I feel like that kind of it almost steals the conversation of like who should be winning Rookie of the Year. And with Clark's cards, they did come out with like a full Panini set for Clark, which the individual player sets, I don't know. I don't love them. If they were to, I wish that actually they had spent more of their resources doing another WNBA set, because that's something that we haven't really, like we've seen a few over the past few years. Like I believe Origins and obviously Prism. I think Prism has been coming out over the past few years. And then we have, like I said, Origins, but more, I don't know, more of these products for WNBA, I think is definitely a good thing for them, especially, that the WNBA license hasn't really been disrupted as much as any of the like football or basketball for Panini, because if you look at it, like they have Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark both as like exclusive athletes. So like, even if Topps wanted to come out with some sort of product with Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese, I think they probably can't, or at least they can't do autos. Maybe they could come out with some sort of unlicensed, which that would be another interesting thing that I think Topps is. I'll be interested to know if the WNBA license comes over with that NBA license, and if Topps is going to come out with any unlicensed WNBA stuff. I think that would be a pretty bold option. If they're getting the WNBA license, then with the NBA, because if they're tied together, then I would say just waiting maybe makes the most amount of sense, especially if you don't have Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese from this last draft. I mean, we do have like Paige Beckers, who's coming up. We have Haley Van Leith. We have both of the, there were like twin basketball players that took a year off that played at Miami that are going to TCU this year. So, I mean, there are some good WNBA stars that are going to be drafted next year. But like the other interesting thing about WNBA is like the way they have the schedule is like which I'm actually, it's good that there wasn't more injuries, but I'm surprised there aren't more injuries at the beginning of the seasons to rookies, because like the way the draft works is like it's like right before the season, and it's like right after the the NCAA tournament. So like Caitlin Clark has been playing basketball like a year straight, which I think, you know what? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe there was something with the Olympics this year, because I don't remember last year's draft being like so soon to the start of the season, but maybe it just always is. And like Caitlin Clark and all these rookies, for example, that played far into the NCAA tournament, they played far in the NCAA tournament, and then they got drafted, and then they like started the season right away. So like the whole WNBA season doesn't take place during the college basketball year, which I actually think that's a smart decision for that specific sport, because like NBA obviously is running during the season. But I don't know. I think that's maybe one reason why potentially that Caitlin Clark became so much more famous. Just like, obviously she's phenomenal, but like maybe she became more famous just overall because there was no WNBA really to compare it to. It was really all the WNBA players were in their off season. So she is out there just breaking all these records and doesn't really have any other, women's basketball that's competing with her on the court like they do maybe with NBA. So I don't know. I don't really think there's a way to compete against that if you're the NBA or in the men's NCAA. I don't think there's any way you can really change that. There's no way. The schedules are too already determined, really, at this point for either of those sports to do what the WNBA and women's college basketball do. But this upcoming year, we've got Caitlin Clark in the playoffs. They are playing Connecticut. I mean, Connecticut's pretty tough. I don't think I'm going to go to any of the games. I know they already played game one. I don't know. I unfortunately that's going to be a tough matchup for the Fever for sure. But to bring, another kind of point here for Caitlin Clark, to bring the Fever from the worst team in the league last year to, sure, they're the 6th seed and they're playing a pretty good seed, but it's like to bring them to that point is, you got to give credit to her, obviously. And I mean, same with the Sky as well. Like they had 2 pretty high draft picks and they played pretty well this season also. So we have a whole new batch of players within the WNBA that are going to be stars here. So that is I think that's actually underratedly a very important license for either Panini to keep when they switch over the NBA, or for Topps to take over when they take over the NBA license if those two are tied together.
Other than the two Monday night games, week 3 basically in the books. And I think my message or my thoughts from week 3 is to just basically continue, like, don't trick yourself into like buying somebody who you don't want to buy, because we have a very, very interesting situation out in Minnesota where Sam Darnold, and this is I think this is what I talked about I don't know, like a week or two ago, probably after, it was definitely after, it was after one of the weeks. It was no, you know what, it probably was last week with Bryce Young. And is Carolina just is for the 3 or 4 years that Bryce Young plays in Carolina, is it going to be bad? Probably. I mean, they have really, they this is a second. They had the first pick in his second year, and now he's benched for Andy Dalton, which, I mean, I'm a big Andy Dalton fan, obviously, as you've probably seen me going with the red hair, and I also like TCU, and TCU also had Max Duggan, another redheaded quarterback. So I took this week. I took the Raiders in a survivor pool, and that was a bad choice. Unfortunately, I went against my guy, went against the red hair. I knew I that doesn't really matter. Sam Darnold. If you were going to buy Sam Darnold, now is definitely not the time to do it. Unless you want to hold on to those cards, I guess, for like the rest of his career. I don't know. It's very interesting to look back at like I don't know, let's say it was probably I guess it would have been the 2019 National in Chicago in the second year for those 2018, that 2018 rookie class is very, I mean, it's maybe one of the best draft classes, and which then would also make, I think, that 2018 Prism like maybe one of the best overall products to open in terms of like the amount of star power you're going to get out of those packs. Like, you're getting Baker Mayfield, you're getting now Sam Darnold, you're getting obviously Josh Allen, you're getting Lamar Jackson. I mean, you're getting some insane players coming out of that year. And Sam Darnold was like, him and Baker, I remember being at the 2019 National back in Chicago, and him, Baker, Sam Darnold, Luka, and Trey, those were like the 3 players that everybody that I was walking around when I was looking at tables, everybody was negotiating deals on those players. And, obviously the Luka works out. Baker is maybe another example of like, if you're going to buy Baker, I guess maybe now would be the time if you think he's going to be a good quarterback for the rest of his career, because this is probably one of the last, because he had a bad week. So I don't know, maybe it's a time that you would buy, but I don't know, maybe even NFL there's an opportunity to buy and sell a lot quicker than other sports, because if you make the correct call with the NFL, I mean, as we've seen with certain players, I mean, the backup quarterback for Miami, Skylar Thompson, who also I believe got hurt. I mean, there's tons of injuries, which is really crazy. And then also, who was the quarterback that? Oh, Malik Willis. Malik Willis after week 1, who already I guess Jordan Love is already projected to come back. Like, could have almost played in the second game, which I was like, whoa, I thought he was going to be out for like 6 or 8 weeks. I guess, I don't know. I guess he's not. But I guess, I don't know. It's one thing. I think there's 2 sides of the coin here with if you want to buy Sam Darnold cards. It's like, if you just want to buy them, that's fine. If you're buying to flip them, that also might end up working out. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure with Minnesota, like, they are a really good team. They did lose Kirk Cousins, who I think was a pretty integral piece of that team. But you still got Justin Jefferson, who is, you could argue, is maybe the best receiver in the league. So I don't know, maybe any time right now is maybe any time that you would need to buy Sam, or don't, because you're going to look at it and say, well, he started out way too hot here. Like this, they can't sustain the success. But he's going to be the big guy in the news here. Like, I think the most viral moments, the most viral conversation that I've seen across, Instagram, Twitter is like Sam Darnold is like, he was the 40th. I saw something from a Madden perspective that was kind of interesting. He was the 40th ranked overall quarterback in Madden this year. And now look at what he's done. I mean, he's got some pretty solid wins under his book. And that's even going into the season thinking he wasn't going to be the starter also. Like, JJ McCarthy was pretty much, I would say he probably was the starter. Like, if he doesn't get hurt in the preseason, he's probably the starter. And obviously that helps. And I think one thing also, this was also something that I keep forgetting to talk about on the podcast too. I guess fix some information I was talking about. I guess all the rookie quarterback, or all the rookies just in general, not just the quarterbacks, in week 1, if they were on the field in their jerseys, they had the debut patch. Because I believe there was like a Miami running back, I think in week 2, or it was either Thursday of week 3. He had the patch, and that was just his first game. So I still think it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out with JJ McCarthy. And like, I don't know. I almost feel like you know what I think they're going to do? I think that the JJ McCarthy patch card probably ends up being some sort of redemption, and obviously won't be fulfilled until he wears the jersey and has the patch. I don't know. I just think it's going to be a weird situation with what they do here. Or if it's like a Ben Simmons situation where it's like they don't even consider him a rookie because he's missed the whole season, which he was the first player in NFL history since like the 50s or 60s, I believe, that was a first overall pick as a quarterback and missed the entire season due to injury. So I just think that we are going to see maybe more reactionary stuff from the market here from football. And you're always going to have the typical subjects, the Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen. Those players are always going to be in the list. Justin Jefferson, I think, is getting him into that conversation. Maybe CeeDee Lamb potentially as well. Maybe Dak. But if you can bet on the right, I don't know, injury, I guess, is maybe one of the only ways. Like, because if you're betting on a player to be benched, most likely that means the team overall is not very good. And if the team is not very good, the backup coming in is obviously not going to have any better of a time. I mean, unless you're Andy Dalton, I don't know. I mean, that was a pretty shocking game. Bryce Young being taken out after week 2, and then Andy Dalton coming in and just really tearing it up. I don't know. That was surprising to me. But I always, if I'm going to be honest too, I have these moments with football, and I don't know if anybody else feels like this, where sometimes I feel like I have a really good gauge. Like, and this is maybe a fantasy or a betting thing where it's like, if I go through a 2 or 3 week span where I bet good games and I win a bunch of games, or like, the first 2 weeks of the season when I picked my survivor pick, I was like, maybe I know ball here. Maybe I know ball. And then I picked the Panthers, or I picked the Vegas, and the Panthers just run them up on the scoreboard. Like, so then I'm like, wow, maybe I don't know that much. I don't, it's really the sport that I feel like changes so drastically week to week. I don't know. It's really kind of one of the only sports that does that. So that's sort of maybe another piece of info that you can use if you are buying and selling football cards, because there is so much change that goes on from week to week that, like, if you are somebody who constantly wants to be trying to figure out what's going on, maybe football is for you. Maybe football is a sport you can look into. If you play fantasy, I mean, I would be interested to know, like, if the fluctuations, like if a player, for example, is like ranked 20th in fantasy, and then at the end of the season, they just are ranked number 1. Like, also, what am I thinking? Also, 2018 has Saquon Barkley, who, again, absolutely insane game. Crazy that he is really, I think it was since 2019, he didn't have over 30 fantasy points or something. But you can maybe this is like, again, these are strategies that I'm not necessarily testing myself. So people that are testing may know better than me. But like, there's so much change within the league that you always have to make adjustments
of your strategy. And it's, again, so, I think the Chiefs are always going to be in that top echelon, but the rest of the league feels like it's very, pieces can move up and down. And right. And the thing I was saying, if a player moves from like the 20th ranked player to the first ranked player, like what happens to their cards? Like, because we've seen stats not really mattering to some extent, with Alvin Kamara and Chris McCaffrey, we saw that they both have the same stats, and yet Chris McCaffrey's cards are worth double. And I don't know. I'm still racking my brain to figure out why exactly that is. Like, is did we just miss it? Did we? I don't understand how somebody could be that good and then, but like not be as popular. Like, but then someone else is just as good, but is like double the amount of popular. I don't know. It's kind of football. Like I said, sometimes I have a good gauge on it, sometimes I don't. But each week it's going to change. So each week, that's one of the good things, I guess, is that each week there will be something to talk about. And maybe that's another reason why football is so popular, is because with it being once a week, there's you play on Sunday and then you have a whole week's worth of news cycle that you can talk about every single little thing that happened during the week. I don't know, not necessarily similar with sports cards necessarily, but from a sports card perspective, week to week, we are seeing changes within the market, and to predict what is going to be the next change, I think is going to be tough. But it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you can make one or two good calls throughout the season, you could pretty much fund whatever you want to do within that sport potentially. Like if you correctly predict one or two players to kind of make a big jump or to come in as a backup, like I said, that might be an opportunity where you're funding the rest of your football season with the football cards that you made those picks with. Yesterday will probably be a pretty important day in sports cards. We had heard about the Sotheby's Fanatics collaboration that they were going to be doing, but the actual auctions that they had were on the 24th, which was obviously yesterday. There were some pretty big cards, and there's also another auction coming up in December. So I'm just on Sotheby's website. Sotheby is proud to partner with Fanatics Collects to redefine the trading card industry. Throughout their partnership, Fanatics Collects and Sotheby will showcase a curated section. Oh my gosh, can't read. Selection of the top of the market cards available for purchase through live and online auctions hosted by Sotheby's. The first auction will be in September, which was yesterday. Some of the cards that sold, they called the auction Holy Grails, and they weren't kidding. I mean, they had the Tom Brady auto. They had a Roberto Clemente PSA 9 that almost sold for $1 million. It sold for $840,000. You had a PSA 8.5 Hank Aaron. You had a PSA 5 Mickey Mantle. You had the LeBron 2003 Exquisite. Like I said, you had a Brady's Contender auto. You had, let's see, I'm just scrolling down the list here, a Juan Soto. This is probably like number to, does it say? It's a Bowman Chrome Orange. So that's probably like number to 50 if I had to guess. They had a Jason Dominguez number to 5, which I thought was kind of interesting, a Bowman Chrome auto. A card that I think actually is extremely underrated within the hobby right now, or just in general, is the George Mikan. I know I talked about that on a podcast where I forgot his name, but a PSA 8 sold, a PSA 8 Jackie Robinson Leaf, the 1/1 Ellie De La Cruz Superfractor from 2022 Bowman Chrome also sold. I think that was the newest card if I had to guess, unless so 2022 was the newest card that sold. There was also an Mbappe numbered to 10. 10 of 10. Mbappe numbered 10 of 10 from 2018 Prism World Cup, 8.5 from BGS. That, I mean, obviously, I don't know if I'm pretty sure I must have told that story on the podcast where the 2018 Mbappe card is just one of the ones that I made it like which is crazy in the sense that like I wasn't making $1 million sales, but I think I bought two PSA 10s at the time for like $30 or $40 a piece, and I must have sold each of them for like $300 or $400. And then I bought two silvers, which that's actually one of my biggest regrets, honestly, is selling that one of those silvers. And then not selling the other silver like at a higher price. Like it went up pretty high, and I just was like, oh no, it's going to keep going up. Like, I was one of those people back in the 2021 2022 days where I was like, oh no, this card's like, I think it got up to 10K, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I think there was a couple 10K sales for the PSA 10 of the silver Mbappe. I think I sold it maybe around 2,500. I think I sold both of them for around that price within that year. I don't remember if I sold them 2 different years or not, but and then they also have the 1 of 1 CJ Shroud Kaboom PSA 9 that sold for 72. And I don't know if this was necessarily the biggest card, but it was just because of the player right now. A 1 of 1 Shohei Ohtani from Topps Chrome Sapphire. It was a Superfractor on-card auto from his rookie year, 2018. That sold for $336K. I saw people saying it should have sold for more. I think people might have been a little bit confused about what that card actually is, because Topps Chrome Sapphire is a good set, but in the 1 of 1, I mean, having one of those 1 of 1s is really crazy. And I don't know, it almost gets to the question of, there's two points here I want to talk about on the podcast. I want to talk about this card specifically with the 1 of 1s, and it almost diminishes. Maybe this is just me yelling at the sky or whatever, like an old person yelling at the sky. But again, having so many different 1 of 1s in a Topps Chrome product like that, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan. Like, having a Topps Chrome Sapphire with a 1 of 1, it feels like it just adds to a little bit too much confusion. And the other piece is kind of just about the auctions in general. Like, this, I think it went pretty well. Like, if you look at the sales, like, I would imagine people that were selling these cards during this auction were probably pretty happy. I mean, I don't see too many, I don't see too many surprises when it comes to cards. I think honestly though, I do think the Contenders Brady auto probably needs to be studied. There needs to be some sort of, I don't know, research study done on like what has happened to that card, because like that was in the conversation every single time for $1 million card. Same with actually the LeBron Exquisite RPA. That one sold for $432K, which that was another one that was like, no matter what the grade was, that was selling for $1 million. And I don't know. I mean, maybe it could just be that card, people sold it for $1 million, and then more people wanted to sell it, and that brought the price down, and then it just never went back up. I mean, that could be the case. But I think like I said, overall for this auction, stuff like this can be it's important for the hobby, because it brings it to a national stage. I mean, Sotheby's is there are a ton of different art auction houses, but like Sotheby's is one of the bigger ones, like, I don't know, probably top 5 if I had to guess, in terms of like social media sort of like things selling through Sotheby's and then them being kind of viral news. Like, they have some big pieces, and putting sports cards on a big stage like that, I think, is important. And we got some good sales, I think, on this first one. There is a second one that's coming up in December, so hopefully the people that were buying these cards didn't spend all their money on this first auction, I guess. But it also can be a bit of a nerve-wracking, maybe milestone is the word I'm looking for. When you have something that's setting the bar, I forget the word I'm looking for, but not track record, whatever. When you have something like this, it can be way worse. Like it feels like sometimes when you have auctions like this, the downside outweighs the upside much more significantly, because if they're promoting these cards as holy grails, and then somebody comes in and looks like somebody who has the money looks at these and says, well, why would these are, I'm buying things that are millions and millions of dollars. And this is probably a minority of people who are even interested in these types of auctions. Especially like big auction houses like this, because it's not Golden. It's not, Fanatics Collects. I mean, it technically is Fanatics Collects, but it was sold through Sotheby's. It was in partnership with Fanatics Collects, but it's not like these auctions were just held on their site specifically. So to put all of these cards on the national stage, they definitely picked the right cards to use for the auctions. Like, looking at the list, I would say those are probably the most important, most significant sports cards. Not necessarily the grades, because obviously if you get a PSA 10 or a PSA 9 or a PSA 8 mantle instead of a PSA 5, that's probably what you're looking for. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if we do get one of those cards, because I don't know if this maybe this is a generic image from somewhere, but like the image they're using for the December sales of the Fanatics Collects has a PSA 8 in there. Now, like I said, this could just be a generic image, but there is a chance that I guess that they're going to have a PSA 8 in this December auctions, because this is not just some like thrown together operation here. This is and also they have the 1-of-1 LeBron Bronny card here, which that's upgraded to PSA 10. I guess I probably talked about that if I had to guess. But so that card also wasn't sold in this auction, and they are promoting it on the website. Yeah, no, it's not in here. They're promoting it on the website under the like upcoming auctions, under the sell with Sotheby's and Fanatics. How you like can contact them if you want to sell some of your cards. They have that 1-of-1. So like those are two, and then a PSA 10 Jordan. There actually wasn't any PSA 10 Jordans in this one. I don't know. Yeah, there weren't any PSA 10 Jordans. I wonder, again, they probably have like, this one has 33. So they probably had like, I don't know, like 100 cards or something, and they decided to split it up into 3 different auctions or 2 different auctions or something like that. Maybe they put all the big ones, the big cards where they knew that were going to sell, like, you know, the which one was it? It was the Clemente, the PSA 9 that sold for, like I said, 840,000, almost $1 million. So I think that there's a chance we see those other 2 cards, like the Jordan card was missing, and then that Bronny LeBron dual auto. Since it's on the website, I don't see how it's maybe not in this next upcoming auction in December, but I don't know. I mean, I didn't even really see, to be honest, like that much promotion of it. And again, maybe it's just because I wasn't looking for it, because that's sort of nowadays with social media, it's like, as soon as you look into one thing, that's just your whole feed for like the rest of the week, essentially. So maybe if I had looked into the Sotheby's or Fanatics Collects partnership or something more, I would have seen that the 24th of September was the date. But either way, we already were mainstream. Sports cards already was kind of mainstream. But in a way, this is kind of just adding to the repertoire of different mainstream places that are in the sports card business. And based on some of the pictures, there were a lot of celebrities at this auction as well. Like, I believe Tom Brady was there. I think Michael Rubin was there. I think the owner of the Patriots was also there. So it's not just an auction. Like, it's a thing that, I don't know, it's a thing that rich people go to for the most part. I'm sure there was probably sports card reporters that were there as well. But overall, I think a pretty good showing on another national stage that is, if sports cards are going to become more legitimate, we're going to have to see more of these types of auctions probably. But like I said, it's another small step in the right direction for this industry, for, I don't know, I guess for people to take it seriously. Maybe that's one way to look at it.
Occasionally there are themes within the weeks of news. Like, sometimes it's a bunch of auctions. Sometimes it's, a bunch of players do really well. And this one seemed this week, and this is maybe me connecting a couple dots that maybe no one else would connect, because that's how my brain works. The 50th home run ball for Shohei Ohtani is headed to Golden. And I think ultimately publicity within sports cards is good. This is going to be one of, I don't know if it's going to be the most expensive baseball of all time. I mean, I don't know, because like the Barry Bonds home run, maybe that one, like if the Bartman ball had existed, that's probably a pretty expensive one. The Cubs winning the World Series, that's probably an expensive one. But this one's, I would say based on where the market is right now, this does end up being probably the most expensive baseball of all time. And like I said, how that affects sports cards is just you're going to have more eyes on Golden's website. And that's kind of what I think happened with Sotheby's and Fanatics. I mean, because you had probably some people that, if you are, I think there's 2 audiences of people that I would say probably followed the auctions with Sotheby's and the with Fanatics. You had one who were just millionaires who were like, oh, cool, like sports cards. Maybe I'll buy some sports cards, or maybe I'll buy like a couple boxes or a case or something like that. And then you have people who are, I don't know, investors, like investors in the actual industry, not in the cards, because I think it's a tough sell. If I'm trying to buy some cards right now to invest in the long term, like even the cards that were sold in this auction, I think, like if you had asked me a couple years ago, Tom Brady, hey, is that going to be $1 million card in 5 years? I'd probably say yes. Clearly not. I mean, maybe there were other versions that were better, and that's why those were the $1 million ones, and this one just wasn't it. But I don't know really. And like I said on yesterday's podcast, I think Robert Kraft was the purchaser of that ball, of that card. So you have those two audiences. Now I think you're going to have much more of a more mainstream. And if you have cards on Golden, I don't know if it's worth going through, like if you have cards in like their vault or anything like that, I don't know if it's worth going through and maybe increasing the price a little bit on some of them. Like if you have the card that's the lowest price, like hypothetically, and actually, I don't know if it works like this. I know it works like this on Check On My Cards. I actually haven't, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I've used the Golden Vault in this way. So I don't know if the cards are listed or if they're individual. I guess, yeah, they must be listed like that. But if you have the lowest card, I think it's probably worth your time to go in there and increase the price a little bit, because you're going to have people who, especially if you have cards that are in the $25 to $200, $300 range, because that's what you're going to get a lot of those types of buyers. Who are seeing the Ohtani ball is on a place called Golden Auctions, and they're going to go to that website. And over the past few years, I have advocated for people to make sure they're doing things correctly, like buttoning up the details of, like, and make sure you're obeying the law. Essentially, that's what I think, or at least obeying the law. I mean, obeying the law, I think, is ultimately obvious, and it feels like an obvious one. But, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes that doesn't always happen within sports cards, if I'm going to be honest. So I think what is going to be best for anybody who, anybody who's doing business within sports cards, just make sure you've gotten things buttoned up here, because because of this 50th home run ball, this probably ends up being the most expensive baseball of all time, which means it's going to get a lot of press. It's going to get a lot of publicity. And then that would then, in theory, probably mean the auction house will probably be in a lot of the marketing, of the sale, not from Golden, because obviously I'm talking about other people talking about the baseball. Golden's going to be in there all the time. And it's good that they really have gotten their platform to the place that it is now. And now they've got this major asset. I mean, the one thing I wonder with Golden is, like, I wonder if they are going to try to become like, which I would imagine so, because they're working with PSA, if they try and become almost like the PSA of auction houses, if that makes sense. Like, because I think with Beckett, maybe not as much anymore, but I think with Beckett, they had a reputation where they were getting all of the expensive, like, low numbered RPAs. I still think a lot of people are sending their low numbered RPAs to Beckett, to be honest, but I think PSA has taken a little bit of that market share. Or are you PSA when you try and make it as easy as possible to buy their product, which is grading? Is an auction house going to try and do that? Like, are they going to try and specialize, which I think, like, heritage auctions, for example, I think that would be a good example of, like, I'm making up a word, the Beckettization of a marketplace. I made that word up. I don't think, like, the closest comparison, I think, to a company like Beckett could be Heritage, but, like, I think that there are other auction houses, and I think Golden and Fanatics are both, well, I guess they both do work with PSA. See, this is kind of one of the confusing things, to be honest, is, like, the connections between all these companies is a little bit, I'm going to be honest, it's a little bit confusing. And I think it would have been fine if they had just stayed not together, realistically. I don't know. But either way,
So Fanatics, Golden, do they try and become the PSA? Do they try and become the easiest, least expensive place to buy cards? Which least expensive in terms of like extra stuff that you have to per fees and stuff like that. Because the buying of the cards, obviously, it's gonna be determined by which cards you're buying, obviously. But do they make it as easy as possible? The way that over the past few years, PSA has made it a much easier, I think, to be the go-to place for grading, which it already was, but I think that they've made it easier and more mainstream for people who are newer to the industry to get into grading. Because before you had to be a group submitter, and like it was, or maybe I just didn't look into it enough, but like I remember looking into grading, and it was like the only way you could get your cards were through a group submitter. And that was just always such a pain because it added so much more time. It added at least like a month or two because you had to get the cards to the person. And then the person, if you're sending your cards, like hypothetically say the submitter submits every month. If you're sending them the first or the second of the month, you're wasting some precious time there, So if they are making it easier, they're making it so regular people can grade cards and you don't have to go through that group submission. Because then the group submitter gets them sent, then they send them back to the group submitter, then this group submitter has to, iron out all of the orders or whatever. But this is what's going to, I think, happen with Golden, realistically, because I think that they're going to try to become the easiest place to buy cards, realistically, because I think this is what's going to happen. Because of this baseball, I think Golden is going to be widely known as like where you go to buy sports cards. Like eBay probably will still be, but like if you're looking to buy any other cards, like it's going to be, I think Golden is trying to make them the place, which now that I'm mentioning eBay, I don't know. I wonder if eBay will ever not be the go-to place. Like if Golden one day or Fanatics, either one, I think, if they look at this and say, well, we can do that much volume in terms of sales, like, which I don't know if they can necessarily because eBay is just such a bigger company overall. I'm sure if you were to look at total sales of eBay versus Golden, it's probably not even close. But I think if you are thinking at it from a perspective of like, could Golden, take some of that market share and become like the number two, like the clear number two, like could they do similar to, I know I'm using a lot of analogies in this episode, but could they do something similar to like what SGC did? And so SGC is never going to take over PSA as the top grading company, but they have eaten into SGC. Is that what I said? I think I said SGC. That's what I meant to say if I didn't. SGC, they've eaten into that second, third area. And I think they've solidified themselves pretty well as like the second best place to get your cards graded. Beckett, I think it's all card based, really. Like if you're looking to get your card, which now PSA has made it even cheaper as well. So like before it used to be like, if you want to get your cards graded by the best place, it might take a little bit longer. It might cost you a little bit more money, but go with PSA. But now they've brought down their prices and they made the process a little bit faster as well. So it used to be that side with PSA, and then it'd be like, if you wanted the cheaper, faster option, SGC is also very good. And that's basically what happened. Like SGC became, I would say, number two. I would say now that I would honestly say that they're number two now in front of Beckett. If we're looking at certain cards, I think it's card based. Like if we're looking at RPAs, I'm still leaning towards Beckett a little bit if I'm going to be completely honest. But at the same time, I'm not grading RPAs. So it's like what I say isn't what the market is saying, maybe. But with this home run ball, I think I'll wrap things up here. Golden, it's good that they spent so much time really making this platform as good as they could. Because now that they have this 50th home run ball, not only are they going to have the publicity from the sale of the ball and the lead up to the marketing the marketing leading up to the sale, I think that their name is probably going to be linked with, their name is going to be linked with this ball for forever now. Like off the top of my head, I can't think of where the Barry Bonds home run ball is sold, but maybe that's because I wasn't in the industry. I just think that that's what's going to happen with this baseball. And, who's going to buy it? What are they going to do with it? If it goes in a museum, I mean, all these articles are going to say it's, I don't know, whatever the price ends up being, in the millions probably somewhere, that Golden Auctions sold the 50th home run ball for, whatever, X amount of dollars. And their name is, whether they like it or not, their name is going to be tied to this baseball for as long as the baseball exists, which is, I guess, would probably be forever, I guess.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you here. This is going to be a show, today's show, basically dedicated to Shohei Ohtani, because there's 3 Shohei Ohtani stories that, I mean, he's obviously the biggest player in the world right now, so maybe it's the fact, but also, like, I don't know. Once I say the stories, you'll probably see why these ended up being the stories. So the first story is going to be the update, which this will be quick because I don't really necessarily have a ton to say about this one, just from the fact that, like, they're still sort of waiting on what is going to happen here with this. So the Shohei ball that was supposed to be going to Golden Auction, which I talked about this week at some point. I don't remember exactly what day, but it was this week is when I talked about it. That ball, apparently someone is suing the person who is selling the ball because, like, they got the ball. I don't really understand this lawsuit, and this actually could turn into nothing because it's like, how does the person get the ball? Like, what happened here? Like, I don't understand where this went. Like, unless this person, like, scammed them, like, unless they were like, hey, I'll do this for you, blah, 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 all this stuff, and then they didn't with the ball. Like, I don't know what happened. So this, like I said, this is maybe fairly quick story just because, like, we're still waiting on details here. So we don't know. But it may not go to auction. Like, it was supposed to start at $500,000 was the first bid for the ball, but now it looks like it might not go to auction. So, either way, I'll obviously that's a story I have my eye on. So we'll watch out for that. The second story is going to be the Sotheby's auction that had the 1-of-1 Ohtani Superfractor from Topps Chrome Sapphire from rookie autograph. That sold for $366,000. We have gotten word that card was owned previously. It was sold in the auction. This is who sold it. It was DJ Ski, who you may see him DJing. He does that for a lot of sports teams, but he's also been, a pretty good part of Topps. Like, he's done some pretty cool stuff. Like, he did the designs for the 2021. He did the designs for the 2021 National eBay, like, cards. I think they were, like, some Chicago. I think that they use, like, Kanye as, like, they use Kanye album covers as the concepts, and then they put in Chicago athletes into those cards. So he has been in sports cards, and he was also in Project 70. I forget if he was in Project 2020. I know that he was in Project 70. And he had some great cards in there as well. So DJ Ski, he was the previous owner. He bought the card for $60K back in 2021 and then sold it for this $336K, which I did an article that is not out yet for Sports Illustrated, actually. That's, maybe that's breaking news on the podcast here. So I've been doing some writing for Sports Illustrated, but I wrote an article that isn't out yet, but it is in the, or depending on when you're listening to this, it may be out. I don't know for sure, but it's written and it's submitted. So the Shohei Ohtani card from the previous sale to this sale was a 30-ish% increase. I think it was 35-36%. The actual, the difference between the original sale from the $60K buy was, then it was, if you go back to 2019, this card sold for $4,800 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, honestly, if it was graded or not. I think it was, because they have the Golden listing, which I was looking on Card Ladder and I couldn't find the actual listing on on Golden's website, but they have it on Card Ladder. So I'm going to trust that they know they know what's going on here. So the price from
the $4,000 basically to the $60,000 that's a 1,200% increase. So, if you do the math here, the person who bought it for 4K sold it for 60 maybe made a better profit than the person, DJ Ski, who bought it for 60, sold it for 3 whatever, which that's obviously a joke because, obviously selling something for 366K and making, I don't know, 260, it's like 260,000 roughly. That's obviously a better deal. But either way, the percentage, pretty interesting. The percentage from the previous sale, which has only been 3 sales of 3 public sales that are on Card Ladder of this specific card. The 4,000, 2019, the 60,000 in 2021, and then this card that sold through Sotheby's this week for 336,000, I believe what the price was, which, like I said, maybe I mentioned this earlier if I talked about this on the podcast, that is the most expensive Shohei Ohtani card now, which is like pretty crazy if you think about it. Like all of the iconic cards, it's like a Topps Chrome Sapphire autograph is like the number 1 most expensive card for him now. It's, we're going to see that number go up probably if I had to guess. I mean, I don't know where some of these cards are, but someone seeing, like if you were a Shohei Ohtani Superfractor owner or you're an owner of because then the next closest sale was also back in 2021. It was one of the red Bowman rookie autos that was numbered to 5. I think that from when I was doing the article, I think it was like $210 was the price of that one. So pretty big increase from his previous high sale, which maybe, I don't know. It's kind of surprising he hasn't had more expensive items, because since he's been in this industry, sports card industry, since he's had cards, he's been the most, exciting player. So I don't know. He doesn't have the long list of expensive cards the way that some other players do, like a Trout or like Brady or LeBron. But slowly, I think he ends up getting there, if I'm going to be honest. Okay, and so the third story, this is I guess another update. So these are kind of all updates. So the print run for the 50-50 home runs Topps the Shohei Ohtani, which, I mean, all hell is going to break loose if somehow in the last couple games of this season, Shohei Ohtani somehow goes 60-60, because this is the 50-50. So the 40-40, I believe, sold 150,000. The 50-50 was a lot higher than I was expecting. I mean, I knew it was going to be in the 6 figures. I knew it was obviously going to be over 150. But I didn't think it was going to reach over the 588 that the triple LeBron, KD, Steph card sold. But it did. It sold for 653,000 copies for this card. And I mean, like I said, I'm really, if he goes 60-60, there's no way people are going to, this is maybe the issue I have almost with Topps being coming out with this card, or not an issue, but it's the season's not over. And if he breaks these records, what happens if he goes 60-60? Are we going to reach 1 million? Is 1 million going to be what the print run of the card ends up? Is that what it's going to be? I don't know. I didn't think this was going to be higher than the 380 or the 588, and it was clearly, but I don't know. I mean, Topps is going to keep doing this probably, and I talked about what I hope that they end up doing with the profits, with some of the I don't know, I almost want to call them winnings, because it's who's really the one that's winning here? Is it Topps or is it the person getting the card? Because there's no way what the card ends up selling for is what Topps bought the card for, but the fact that they were able to come out with this card and print and get 600,000 orders for this card, which, like I said, if we're doing the math here, let's just say enough cards, someone bought enough cards where, let's just say the average is $9, because it's $12 is how much one of the cards cost, but as you keep going down, so let's just say $9 roughly is what is the amount of, or is what the medium price, let's just say. So they sold 53,000. Again, that's easy, almost $6 million. Like it was $5.8 million. That's a rough estimate. That's a short estimate. Like I think it could even be higher, depending on like how many people bought extra cards or like what it was, because the $9 might not be the actual middle. It might have been just a low. I know it gets lower. I forget off the top of my head where it goes down from the $11.99 to if you buy like 20. Like I think if you buy, I think it's around 9. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure. But what is Topps going to do here? Like, are they going to go out and are they going to get more of these autographs? Like, because there's no way, like I said, that they made almost $6 million. They made probably $6 million. Now, obviously, I know that it costs to produce the card, but there's, like I said, I was talking about with the Messi and Steph Curry auto, the dual auto that they also did. There's no way this card that they're producing costs more than $250K to get the autos, secure the autos, and then print all the cards that they're going to be printed for that card. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think I would be interested to know that number. If I don't think Topps would ever tell anybody. I mean, if I ask, maybe I could get somebody to spill the beans, and then, I would have to, say on the podcast tell people back, oh, I don't really know, you get the beans and then just be like, I don't really know though. But the 650,000 for one Topps Now card. It's just the lottery. I mean, it really is not even about the card at this point, too. Like, that's sort of the thing that I'm like, I don't know if I want Topps to really continue doing this concept, because it's like they, opening packs and stuff, that's sort of the lottery. That's sort of the gambling aspect of it. But now it's literally just going straight from Topps to the consumer, and it's just a gamble. You're just gambling. So whatever Topps decides to do with this money, I mean, this is massive for them. Like, this is not something that they, like, if we're looking at 2 to 3 to 4 potential cards that made them multi-millions of dollars, that at the beginning of the year, I bet you they weren't expecting. I'm hoping they reinvest. I think that they may. But I also think that they might not, because it's a business and you want to make money. And, Fanatics, I'm sure, has investors. I'm sure there's people who, they see that number and they go, oh, well, where is this, hopefully. And the only other issue that might happen here is like, they might expect, like, this is an anomaly, I think, just in the grand scheme of cards. Like, this is not something that's going to happen all the time. I mean, it may be, or maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe Topps just unlocked a new way to sell sports cards potentially. But like, I don't think they should do it that way realistically. So I guess we'll see over the next year or 2 years, like where this money goes. And if it goes towards the Fanatics Fest, or it goes towards getting better cards, or it goes towards signing new athletes, that would be phenomenal. That would be, I think, best for the sports card industry. But is it going to be best for the business of Fanatics and the business of whatever they're doing when it comes to their sports card inventory? I also think yes, but I could see at the same time how some people might argue in the other direction.